And we have a few things we want to cover today, which is super important. And once again, I am joined by my amazing co-host, Mr. Hank Hunt. How are you, sir?
Hey, sir, I'm excited. And one of the reasons why, Leland, I'm excited is as I continue to work with you, looking for solutions for people. I am myself energized on possibilities. That's all. Just potential and possibilities. Okay.
Absolutely. One of the things that we wanted to discuss with you all today is a few things in the news. And the first one is in reference to Square. All right. Now, of course, Hank, I'm sure when you were growing up, when people would call someone else a square, I'm sure that wasn't a
Don't go there.
at that time frame, right?
Yes,
So let me say this: it's a good day to be a square or be a part of Square. I'll put it that way. All right.
absolutely. Hmm.
So for anyone who does not know, Square is what I consider to be a soft bank for the most part. They do not have a brick and mortar, but they do offer banking, and they're most known for their distribution of collection of funds via Cash App. That's what they're most known for. And then also they're a payment processor.
Hmm.
So a couple years ago, I remember um, Square would send to different office locations um, an actual Square, and you would plug that into your phone socket, and it will allow you to collect payment from clients right there on the spot, which I thought was pretty cool technology.
Within 48 hours.
Within 48 hours, absolutely. Yep.
Hmm.
They will swipe their card and boom, as long as it was a master, Visa, American Express, Discover, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, you got paid.
Actually, we've been using Square for business probably about 6 years or so, 5 or 6 years, and we found that it works well. And this is before a lot of the other cash apps came along. But because we are familiar with that technology and that application, and we're comfortable with the security of it. So so for people who are doing business and they don't want to pay the bank all of those service fees or what have you, yeah, sure. Everybody's in business to make money, so Square will take a percentage, but you can write that percentage off
There you go.
and you have access to your money in a couple of days.
Absolutely. So, what all is here's a good question. Why is Jack Dorsey in the news? What's going on with Square? What are they looking to do, Hank?
Well, the interesting thing about it is, here he is. Here's as I was looking at it. Here he is riding high with Twitter.
Okay.
I mean, just riding high with Twitter. Billions of people, millions of people, hundreds of millions of people are using that particular technology or that app.
Okay.
But he's wanting to do something else. So he goes from Twitter to invest now in Square.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I thought was interesting is he said, why Square over Twitter? And he's looking at the financial services and the payment aspects, because Twitter is just point and click. But now he can influence markets with a financial tool versus a communication slash networking tool.
That's good. That's good. And I want to say, I remember when Twitter came out. Um, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was 2008 or 2009. And when Twitter first became big, it reminded me of a forum type communication that was open to uh, the masses, basically. Like, you can either have you can have a private Twitter page or a public Twitter page, but essentially, it was you writing or typing in a format, and people could see it, they can retweet it, they can like it, whatever. I think Twitter really became very, very popular from our last president. I think that's when Twitter got a lot more attention, because beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
people were migrating a lot from Twitter to other things such as WhatsApp or Instagram, those kind of things, Facebook, um, and not everyone was being so active on Twitter. Now you have people who are a little bit more active on Twitter. And a negative with Twitter right now is that because of some of the negative actions that took place
Mm-hmm.
from political leaders, i.e., what took place at the riot in Washington, right, January 6th. What the government has looked at is, or what the government has found, is claiming that a lot of the warning signs were missed because some people who were leading that motion or that whatever that movement
Mm-hmm.
made their announcements on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
spoke about it, gave the dates, times, locations, and so forth. So they're also now Twitter's now being more censored, it's being monitored a lot heavily, and I believe
Mm-hmm.
that's also going to begin to impact, if it has not already, the revenue. I think that's part of why he's also pivoting.
If I may, and I just went back and I was looking at the article. I had highlighted something. He says, and again, Twitter has gotten a bad rap, as you indicated, because, and Dorsey wants to divorce himself from creating a tool that cast him in an unfavorable light. But he says that he was talking about Twitter, and he says that its ability to sell digital advertising, a market that's dominated by Google and Facebook. So
Yep.
there's a lot of competition with Twitter for from a revenue perspective. In the last one, he says Square simply has more chips on the table with generally low risk and better returns.
So here's something that's pretty interesting. Twitter is a publicly traded company, and I wonder, and I'm interested to know if any negative impact this has had on the stock and on the shareholders. Okay, because if you're a shareholder and you have stake, you have equity in a company, you can't really necessarily pivot too quickly to get in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And then if your CEO or founder is kind of bashing it a little bit, I'm sure that would have a negative impact. And normally, your vision is coming from your CEO or your founder. So that's interesting to me. What's also very interesting in reference to him to this one, I think it's a great move, but I believe this also lets everyone know that, from what it appears to me, Dorsey, Elon Musk, and others have various business interests, and they are 1,000% comfortable and okay with pursuing most, any, or maybe all of those business interests.
Here's the thing that as I continue to read his article or reread his article, as a savvy business owner, you want to always be looking for opportunity. You evaluate the risk, you evaluate possibilities and potential, you do some type of weighted analysis, and then at some point in time, you either stay pat with the hand you've got,
Hmm.
or you decide that, hey, you know what? Right now the gains outweighs staying pat, because the Twitter platform will not allow Dorsey to engage that much in cryptos. And he's thinking of using the Square platform
Yeah.
to help expand the cryptocurrency footprint. And his views are, as with Musk and a few others, that crypto will become a world currency. So if he already has a device, a mechanism, a platform, a strategy to incorporate all of that, where now Square, he will allow Square to transact
Crypto.
crypto transactions.
Yep.
Come on, people.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So once again, I think it's a smart move, and it
Hmm.
lets, and I believe it also lets everyone else know that the days of a founder or a CEO solely making that a business their primary focus, I think we're seeing many people stray away from that,
Well,
because what
plus,
because what used to happen for most startups, and I apologize for interrupting, but what used to happen for most startups would be, like, for example, let's say Steve Madden, right? He creates a shoe. He raises money. It gets on Wall Street, for example, and then his life's mission or the goal is to continue to make shoes and make it the best shoe company possible, and to be the visionary behind the company, even if not active CEO, right? And
hmm
to
hmm
carry that on or champion that on for years, decades going forward. What we're seeing now is similar thing with founders taking the companies public, getting on the stock exchange, and then the founders saying to themselves, this isn't something I'm going to follow through or make it my life mission. There's
hmm
something else I want to do. I'm going to pursue that. That's what I'm noticing in
hmm
this generation.
well, plus, at some point, you have to be willing to harness your ego. You rarely hear Dorsey's name mentioned in the
True.
public sphere. You hear Musk's name, and you hear
Zucky,
Meta's name often.
Zuckerberg, yeah,
Okay, and there are probably others, but it's as if he is concerned about his reputation as a human being and how he's perceived internationally.
probably. I,
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
yeah, I agree with that.
So
Yeah,
but again, he's willing to step down. He's still making a boatload of money with Twitter, but he's not involved with the day-to-day operation. Bill Gates stepped down. There, the guy at Apple, who's dead, their job, he stepped
Jobs.
down. There are a lot of
He,
these guys that
he was
that
forced
step.
out though. Yeah,
Yeah, well, but they brought him back.
they did bring him
They brought him back. Zuckerberg is in a position where he cannot be fired.
at the moment. Yeah.
Well, he went public. He can't be fired.
Hmm.
Okay, the other guys went public, and and the boards, sort of kind of put some pressure. But so anyway, um, I just think that for
If
those who are in business, consider Square.
Mhm.
I have no shares of stock. Maybe I should now. He's thinking about going, crypto.
let me say this though real quick. There's been a trend for the past 30 to 60 days. All right, and I don't know if anyone else has noticed this trend, but the trend has been, obviously, I'm talking about Dorsey, um, founder of Twitter, is now focusing heavier on cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
You have Elon Musk, founder or co-founder of PayPal and Tesla. He's now going to focus heavily on cryptocurrency. You also have Mark Zuckerberg, who is, I guess, now the founder or whatever of Meta, and they're going to focus heavy on cryptocurrency as well, because Facebook wants to have their own cryptocurrency called Libra coin.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm noticing, the correlation is that there's a huge focus on crypto. So maybe, just
Uh-huh.
maybe these individuals know something that the rest of the world doesn't know. So
But I would say that if you are going to invest in the crypto market, um, make certain that there are guardrails
Yeah.
on that currency, because I was reading an article the other day and it says over $150 million stolen by hackers from cryptocurrencies exchange Mart, MART.
Hmm.
Okay. Uh,
And that can happen overnight.
yeah. And and someone put up a note about how these guys are taking enormous money, you know, basically out of the market. They're selling shares.
Hmm.
Musk sold $10 billion worth of shares of Tesla.
Right.
You know,
But
so they're divesting,
yeah.
but they're not leaving that. They're not particularly leaving the child. They're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Well, but hold on, that's important. So they're divesting, and we talked about this in one of our meetings we had, I think Monday night for clients, which was on that stage 5 that we talked about for Asset Builders Club.
Hmm.
You want to get your dry powder in order to have a larger acquisition, right?
Correct.
So I believe that that's probably what they're doing, and I see that in the chat we have someone saying that it could be for taxes. I don't know. I think if you're selling stock, that much stock,
Hmm.
you're going to pay a heavy tax,
Well,
especially
what
when
if
you're
you
going to
have
take it
it in
out.
a in a family? I mean, in a trust.
Well, that's different, absolutely. And
And
then
I'm thinking these
yeah,
guys have they are insulated from a lot of the tax liabilities.
good point. Good point. All right, let's go to topic number 2, which is this is pretty interesting as well.
Oh. No,
This is this is where it's all hidden, right here.
yeah. Why do you think the FTC
Hmm.
would consider looking at supply chain?
I don't know, Hank. I mean, do you think it has anything to do with the pounds of cocaine that Chase Bank was
Nah,
importing from Panama?
nah,
No. Okay.
nah.
All right.
Okay, folks. Look, over the last couple weeks, there's been a lot of huff and puff about um, rising interest rate. I mean, rising
Yeah.
inflation,
Inflation. Yep.
and we're looking at the backlog or backlogs at all of the ports around the world.
Yep.
So if we
And
understand in business 101 supply and demand,
right.
okay,
So
there
therefore,
were
if you choke what,
supply,
then hey,
okay, there's a so what the government is trying to do is to make certain that these companies are continuing to play fairly with the general public,
whew, go
because
figure.
there's hoarding and gouging that's happening, and there's nothing we can do about it. In fact, Leland, I was looking, because much of it had to do with people were saying, well, look, man, the price of this, that, and the other. Well, again, there are certain costs of living or inflationary tendencies that happen all the time, and normally increase in wages
Hmm.
accounts for the increase in cost of living,
Typically,
except except for the folk who are making $7.35 an hour.
well, they've already lost that battle in
They
that
they
case.
lost that battle back in the 90s or 2009, I forget, whenever it
I
was. The
might even
point
say the
is,
80s. Yeah.
yeah, okay. And with the government keeping minimum wage at 7.35
Mm.
was a calculated decision that was somewhat perpetrated by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, big business.
Yeah, it was.
and the CEOs of these big businesses are making millions and millions of dollars per year. And if you're making $8 an hour, you're making about less than $18,000 a year. And who's doing the work? The common laborer.
Yeah,
So the FTC just wants to make certain that these companies are keeping are being fair. And as we talked before, Leland, a 6% interest rate or inflationary rate is 6 cents on the dollar. Now, to you and me, that may not be a lot, but for people who are scraping, 6 cents ends up being a
significant.
lot. Yeah, no,
Yes,
and
significant.
but I found something that says that the price of eggs increased 19 cents.
And I
The
want to say this. I want to say this real quick, Hank. Just kind of put this more in perspective.
hmm
The reason that this is of importance, the reason that this does shed additional light, is that in a to in addition to inflation increasing,
hmm
if you also have a choke time, that also will make your prices increase because that makes demand go up, right? And
Correct.
for
It
a
does.
lot of these things, some of these things do have fixed control, um, but supply and demand. If you go to the grocery store and your local grocer right here is reading for anyone who can't see, if your wholesale grocer just so happens to have a chokehold on the amount of supply they're releasing from a shore or a dock, as an example,
hmm
that's going to make your prices go up.
hmm
Now, as a average consumer, your immediate thought is inflation, and inflation does have play a part, but you're going to have a price increase just because of the lack of.
hmm That's absolutely
That's going to be
correct.
and that's going to be the immediate effect, the immediate impact. So that's why it's
And
important.
and again, I tell people don't get caught up in the hype. You need to back away from the echo chamber and basically just do a little bit of research. You can use Google or whatever other search engines you use, because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's misdirection. There's sleight of hands that's happening with with inflation or with supply. And again, you have to make certain. I would say you don't have to make certain, but I would encourage you to just make ensure that you don't become part of the problem by perpetuating misinformation.
That's good. Speaking of groceries, our last topic here is high grocery bills, right? We kind of touched on this a little bit,
hmm
but the big impact people are talking about is that gas is skyrocketing about 9%, and then groceries on overall average has skyrocketed. I'll say about a 3% increase.
hmm
So that's a really really big. I also want to see look at this real quick what
But
we have here.
but Leland, can we talk about the fact that with and this is what a lot of people don't really want to hear, but with all of the and I'll lump them all as stimulus dollars, with PPP, with with um, the the recent approval by Congress of almost over $1 trillion. Those programs, when people were unemployed because of COVID and the federal government gave them extra money on a weekly basis, all of those all of those programs added somewhat to the amount of money in circulation. And because there was a lot of money in circulation, companies then were saying, well, hey, Hank can afford to pay $1 for this. So they increased the price because there was more money in circulation.
I
Then
think
the
that's
choke.
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I think that's a large part. Yeah, absolutely.
But then they didn't expect the logistics system to have the debacle that it had, but they kept the prices high. So now, because there's a supply shortage, still got a demand got a demand issue as a supply problem. If they just tacked extra increase in price over something that because they want to take more money out of circulation, out of the hands of people, you know. And I'll say this too. There are those who say that the federal government should not be involved with a lot of stuff. They don't want the federal government involved with clean air. They don't want the government involved with clean water. They don't want the government involved with energy. They don't want the government involved with jobs. They don't want the government involved with COVID. They don't want. Let me tell y'all something. You can trust your neighbor all you want to, but your neighbor is looking out for his or her interests and not yours. Okay.
It's weird. It's weird whenever I chuckle whenever I hear someone saying that they do not want to get involved in something like natural resources. I think it's important to have a set. Let me say this real quick. The FDA, is that the best standard? Hell no. Is the EPA the best standard? No. But I'll tell you this: I'd rather have a standard than no standard.
Okay.
I would prefer to have the ability to drink out of a stream where one is not pissing of hit. I would prefer that the water is being filtrated. Right. So yeah. So I do think it's necessary to have government body.
I rewind because I have to slow myself down. It's not that I suffer from ADD or ADHD. It's one of those situations that I have a very active mind. Think about this.
Okay.
With COVID-19 and all of its ramifications, what happened to manufacturing?
Prices went up for manufacturing because less people were working in the United States at least.
Well, people weren't work. They couldn't work. Same thing happened on farms. Same thing happened in meat packing places and in processing places or what have you. There were a lot of places that people could not work, which impacted the supply of stuff. So there are people who said, well, it's because of this and the government put more money in the market. No, COVID shut us down, people. I'm not telling you to get vaxxed. I'm just telling you COVID shut us down, which impacted the way we do business, period. So again, I said misdirection, sleight of hands, and things of that sort. Just be careful. Don't get caught up in the hype.
Mm-hmm.
You're watching TV and it says blah 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 blah, breaking news. Come on, back up. Back up. Be careful where you eat. That's what my daddy used to tell me. And y'all will catch that somewhere along the line. And then he didn't mean literally eating either.
I want to say as we wrap up, and we got quite a few good articles to come back on, especially in reference to the tax debacle. What we want people to understand is that investing, much like any sport that is played, is a team sport. I don't care if it's tennis. Tennis is still a team sport because there are coaches, there are trainers. They go into that, nutritionists, etc. On and on and on. Right, off tennis. Even if you consider those. So what Hank and I want everyone to understand that is listening is that you need to be a part of a team. You need to have teammates.
Yes.
And you need to understand the roles necessary for you to be successful.
Can I add something to that, sir?
Absolutely.
You need to make certain that there's credibility, that there's ethics, there's
Yeah.
professionalism, because we all hear scuttlebutt later on down the road about somebody. Man, did you? I didn't know. Listen, you can do all the research you want to, because I would encourage you to do your research. Please do your research. But one of the things that we strive to do is to make certain that whatever we say, we can back it up. Not just today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, because credibility and character are the hallmarks of my existence.
On that note, we encourage you all to join us at salarytofreedom.com. That's salary, the number 2, and then freedom.com. Salarytofreedom.com. Thank you all for listening.
Hey, God bless, man. Thank you, Mark. Leland.